Hey, everybody! Welcome to Friday the 13th, the series. I'm your producer, Robert, and I'm your host, Robert. That's right, I'm going it alone again and following up my Needful Things review with a deep dive into the television cut. Yes, that is an honest to God real thing that I have now seen. There are dozens of us. Dozens! After explaining why on God's green earth there's a second cut of this thing, I'm going to lay out some of the general differences between them. Then I'll run through what I think are the most interesting differences while revisiting the predictions I made after watching the theatrical cut. And, for added embarrassment, I'm going to use the new material and the results of my last round of predictions to make still further predictions about the book. Rest assured, your favorite host and mine, Hill Street, will once again cameo later, courtesy of some pre-recorded nonsense I couldn't use anywhere else. Although I will get into spoilers, I'm not going to recap the whole story, so if you haven't listened to my review of the theatrical cut, go do that first. Or, go watch it. Speaking of, at the time of this recording, both versions are available to watch on YouTube for free, but no promises that'll last in perpetuity. Fair warning, the TV cut is 3 hours long, so let's get started. Some philosophers ask why God allows bad things to happen to good people. I ask why he allowed any other cut of Needful Things, much less a 3-hour one, to be created. Well, I suppose the short answer is the popularity of the IT TV miniseries opened the door for more of the same. So why not add an hour of filler to Needful Things and throw it on television? Unfortunately, even the theatrical cut wasn't critically or commercially successful, so TBS probably didn't benefit from a 190-minute long version. According to a Screen Rant article from November 15th, 2023, written by Dan Zinski, TBS ordered the longer cut and brought back the film's director, Fraser C. Heston, to edit it. According to the same article, Mr. Heston prefers the theatrical cut. I'll say what the article is classy enough not to. The TV cut was an unabashed cash grab that grafted unnecessary material back onto a story which didn't need it, in order to meet an arbitrarily long runtime, and produced a product worse than the original. That said, the same article also reprints Stephen King's Twitter, now called X, post on the subject. The uncut version of Needful Things, I believe only available on DVD, is amazingly good. It makes sense of everything the theatrical version chinched on. 187 minutes long. Blew me away. Also, nice to see Ed Harris playing an unadulterated good guy. Glad someone liked it. Of course, I'm pretty sure he prefers the TV version of The Shining. Dan Zinski, on the other hand, seems to more or less share my feeling that tonal consistency is the theatrical version's biggest problem. However, he feels that the additional material might actually make that problem worse, whereas I feel that all the bloat does actually make the TV cut feel consistently like the TV miniseries it's aspiring to be. So, in my opinion, it set out to be worse and succeeded with flying colors. Before I begin breaking down the differences, I'm going to take a moment here to mention a website I'll be referencing later, moviecensorship.com. I stumbled backwards onto this site while translating a Latin phrase that only appears in the TV cut. You'll just have to trust me for now, that sentence will make sense later. The site has a nifty side-by-side comparison of the biggest changes between the two versions, and plays a fascinating role in determining whether or not one of my predictions was correct. Alright, let's get this slog on the road. The changes start early and they start big. After the opening credits and shots of the devil rolling into Castle Rock in his black 58 Mercedes-Benz, the energy dies abruptly as the movie cuts to a beautiful but flat wide shot of Sheriff Ed Harris jumping the deputy's cruiser. It's one of the many new shots that both screams television cut and reminds me of Twin Peaks. For the record, the fact this reminds me of Twin Peaks makes me profoundly sad. I don't know why I never noticed the deputy's main accent before this moment. It's almost like the actor tried it here, then they scrapped it. In a moment that Stephen King meets Mad Max, so Maximum Overdrive, Devil Von Sydow drives straight at them, shearing off the deputy's door. Sheriff Ed Harris gives chase, and I suddenly wish Needful Things had been Duel, but with Satan. With the TV nature of this cut, the entire chase scene feels like what if the Dukes of Hazzard had been set in coastal Maine. During it, we learn Birch Harbor is Castle Rock's neighbor. Neat. The scene goes on and on. It really is stunning the amount of resources and danger that went into shooting something almost no one ever saw. Eventually, the devil crashes, Sheriff Ed Harris sees a vague figure through the flaming wreckage, then, I'm not kidding, that one antique car explodes in a fireball potentially bigger than the one that ends the film. Why put the biggest explosion first? I can't fathom. But for those with a good memory, that makes 4 explosions Sheriff Ed Harris survives in this story. Prediction time. Was this chase sequence in the book? Car chases feel like more of a movie thing, but King does love cars. Tough one. This sequence adds nothing to the story, characters, or themes, so I hope it isn't in the book. Plus, the destruction of this car means the film will soon have Devil Von Sydow arriving in a much lamer vehicle, which I can't imagine King doing, so I'll go with NASA. And, while we're stopped, prediction review. Last time I said, is this exact car in the book? Being the car guy he is, I'm going to make my first guess that this old black Mercedes is exactly as described in pages of detail by King in the book. So that is a firm aye to begin. For the reason already stated, I 100% stand by this prediction. All right, did everyone go to the bathroom? Are you sure? Because I'm not stopping this podcast again. This new chase sequence is followed by more new material of Sheriff Ed Harris relating everything we just saw to Sheila, a woman who works in the sheriff's department. She's in both cuts and even had a couple lines in the theatrical, but I don't think she was ever named and never got this chance to shine. In another new scene, we follow Sheriff Ed Harris outside the sheriff's office where, like Michael Myers, Devil Von Sydow watches from behind the wheel of a forest green Volvo filled with curios. Jeez, can you make him less threatening? Why not the Griswold's Wagon Queen family truckster? In our 4th straight new scene, the Volvo arrives outside Curious Goods, which already has a banner proclaiming the grand opening of Needful Things. So who put that up? Don't the townsfolk find it a bit odd it already has a banner when the proprietor hasn't arrived yet? And it opens tomorrow? Tomorrow. A completely empty building is having a grand opening tomorrow. Whatever. In one of the strangest transitions in the history of cinema, we dissolve from the grand opening banner to a grand opening newspaper announcement. Yeah, we know. In the 5th straight new, hey, it's Master Brian's mom, eating what appears to be bubblegum flavored ice cream? Put a pin in this moment because we'll address it when we get to that prediction a little later. She's talking on the phone to Myra, a waitress at Bonnie's Diner. Myra was in the theatrical cut, but she had few lines and plays no important role in either version. Prediction time. Does Myra play a bigger role in the book? My guess, aye. In the diner, we get our 6th new scene, meeting Honey Bunny, Frank, and the priest, plus some old guy with a white beard and strong Maine accent who actually says, aye. Talk about leaving gold on the cutting room floor. Because this version is all about filler, we end with yet another shot of the grand opening announcement, followed by a dissolve to solve it, as they say. If you ever thought the theatrical cut needed a scene to establish the deputy writing Buster that parking ticket, we get it here in the 7th straight new scene. Passing a barber shop, Sheriff Ed Harris steps into the street and is almost killed or crippled by the deputy nearly pinning him between his cruiser and Buster's classic convertible. Prediction time. Is Buster's car directly out of the book? It's a car and this is King, so aye. Again, it's staggering this simple but potentially deadly stunt was filmed, then not even used. And if that wasn't Ed Harris really doing it, they hit it well. Speaking of pointless stunts, after 15 minutes of new footage, we're finally back to a scene from the theatrical cut. Master Brian on his bike. For some reason, before arriving at Needful Things, they had this poor kid ride his bike through the greater portion of Maine's forests. Absolutely nothing happens. He just rides. Why did they film this? Your guess is as good as mine. This is probably a fine time to mention I'm not going to call out every instance of padding moving forward. Ditto every line change or new camera angle or change in scene order or the few instances in which something was actually cut. But this was stunt work with a kid, so, you know, the kind of thing you want to keep to a minimum if you can help it. After completing the tour de Maine, he arrives at Needful Things. Prediction review. In my previous script, I said, inside, the devil informs Brian he's been there before, despite Brian's casual protests that he hasn't, in a strange echo of Kubrick's The Shining. Is this referencing something from the book and TV cut? Aye, this has to be referencing something from the book. I'd put my money on a dream sequence, but maybe the devil just caught him snooping before the store opened. The longer cut feels less likely, but then why the reference here? So I'll stick with a less confident aye. Wrong. There is zero explanation in the TV cut. Time that could have been spent developing that creepy and esoteric concept was, instead, spent on a car chase. I neglected to mention last time, Sheriff Ed Harris proposes to Bonnie, not down on one knee, but from a lunch counter stool. This happens in both cuts, and there's no prediction here. I just find it odd, and assume it's the film nailing a tidbit of actual Maine tradition. I further surmise the wedding is held in a bait store, the one closest to the marina if it isn't booked up through summer. Back to Master Brian and Devil von Sydow. Prediction review. I said, "The devil dispenses what I hoped would be the first of Satan's rules of acquisition, but it turns out to be his only advice on the subject. Are there more in the book and TV cut?" Book? Yeah. TV cut? No, sir. Correct. Low-hanging fruit, but I'll take it. And my book prediction stands. And we have another prediction review. I said, "This is the only time money is actually mentioned, which absolutely begs the question, what happens if people can, afford the objects? Is this addressed in the book or TV cut? My guess? Aya and Nasa." Correct. The closest we get is a later moment in which a Mrs. Roberts, the woman who previously scolded Master Brian, leaves Needful Things empty-handed because, quote, "it is a lot of money," and Devil von Sydow just lets her go. Feels good to be right, but I suddenly have no idea why I said "I" for the book. I'm changing that one right now. I think some authors would address it, but not King. And on the subject of Mrs. Roberts, prediction time. Does Mrs. Roberts play a greater role in the book? I can't fathom what, but I'm leaning toward "I." In an extension of a theatrical scene, Bonnie's arthritis proves problematic regarding trying on an engagement ring, and it's established both that she takes pain medication and that she has to wear hand braces sometimes. Bummer. But if I was already certain about one aspect of her character, it was the crippling arthritis, so not sure why we needed this. After a fade to black, which I assume was originally a commercial break, Master Brian is nearly hit by a car while leaving curious goods. So again, completely unnecessary stunt work. The driver is... I have no idea. And tells Master Brian, next time he's going to run him down and make you squeak, little buddy. Hang on, was this almost an accident or an act of vehicular intimidation? It kinda sounds like this guy is a serial killer with a penchant for automotive torture and speaking in Kingisms. Prediction time daily double. Was a relationship between these characters and the actual words, "make you squeak," lifted straight from the book. Aya and aya. I failed to mention last time that in the scene of Buster confronting the deputy about the parking violation, the deputy, not Buster, refers to the handicap space as a crip space. Although not as offensive back then as it is today, it wouldn't have been considered polite, and to my knowledge wasn't even a real term. In fact, Buster doesn't seem to know what the deputy is talking about until he switches to calling it a handicap space. So why did they do the deputy dirty like this? This is probably the time to mention that although this version is still laced with profanity, some lines have been changed via dubbing. So yes, we do get a few yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon moments. Prediction review. I said, "My guess, like Harold Lauder, Buster is King's heavily bullied as a kid author insert character. Like Harold, in the book, is he the most complex character? And does he possibly even have a poetic and moving death? Not that anything about this film would lead me to that conclusion. Oh, that's a 3-point eye up from center court, with nothing but net." I still firmly believe Buster is the most interesting and three-dimensional character of the book. Fun fact, even his Needful Thing is the most complex, given that it comes with a story and he actually uses it. In a new follow-up scene, Buster tries to get out of the ticket, but Sheriff Ed Harris isn't having it. The next scene, also new, is an even more egregious example of fat that should have been trimmed at the script stage, but nevertheless contains one important function, namely establishing that, like Lonely Island, Sheriff Ed Harris lives on a boat. Bonnie visits him at the marina, he complains about the townsfolk and his job, then they make out. Absolute filler. However, in the theatrical cut, I did wonder why Bonnie seemed to be heading to the marina in the evening, and this scene does answer that question. Just to continue the bizarre redundancy around Needful Things, a new establishing shot reveals it has both a shingle and banner next to each other that proclaim Needful Things, a new kind of store. Prediction review. I said, inside Needful Things, elderly twins in matching sweaters are saying their goodbyes to the devil and will never be seen again. Is there more with them in the book and TV cut? There has to be. I'm giving 2 eye-ups for the price of 1. Wrong. No equivocating here. They are seen neither before nor after this moment, despite having 36 minutes to have been established. Of course, this makes me more certain than ever they're in the book. In this version, when Sheriff Ed Harris visits Devil Von Sydow for the first time and they eat the pie Honey Bunny brought over, Devil Von Sydow takes the pie box upstairs, then comes down holding the pie, sans box, in one hand and 2 dishes and a pie server in the other. I know magic is at play here, but why did he go upstairs? Is his kitchen and/or dining room up there? Probably not. If you wanted to convince Sheriff Ed Harris everything was on the up and up, why not dip into a room on ground level? And I'm just spitballing here. Maybe the actual kitchen or dining room? Weird. Maybe this was the filmmakers actually creating a subtle bit of strangeness for the audience's benefit? I don't think so, but maybe. Prediction time! Devil Von Sydow mentions wishing he had some cheddar cheese to put on his pie. That is a real thing people used to do, but is it directly from the book? No firm stance here, but I'll wager... Prediction review. I said, meanwhile, Sheriff Ed Harris and the devil enjoy the pie Honey Bunny brought over while discussing what brought them to town. Strangely, the devil feels like he knows Sheriff Ed Harris from somewhere but can't place it. The Truman Show, maybe? Seriously, I can't imagine why it isn't the other way around. Is it explained in the book and TV cut? And no, sir. Correct, it's not explained. But Devil Von Sydow thinks he might know Sheriff Ed Harris from a big city. Pittsburgh, one assumes, since that's where Sheriff Ed Harris is from, and where he lost his temper and beat a man to death. You know, I never thought about this before, but as much as we all love Ed Harris, that aspect of his character never comes across. Not once do I look at him and think, whoa, this guy is a race car in the red. In fact, I would almost call him the Zen Master. Yes, he gets angry, yells, even beats up Devil Von Sydow in this version, yet somehow always seems justified and in control. Not like his anger is coming from some dangerous deficiency of character. Anyway, do I think it's explained in the book? Well, that's more than ever. And now, prediction review, part 2. I said, then again, he's admitting to murder moments after meeting a man he doesn't know from Adam. So maybe he is being influenced in some way? I don't know. Do the book and TV cut explain why some people are more susceptible than others? The book? The TV cut? Nasa. Correct. The TV cut answers nothing. I'm starting to think the book probably doesn't either, but I'll let my stand for now. Okay, time to open Pandora's box. I didn't make any predictions about why Master Brian's mom was almost completely excised from the theatrical cut, and just assumed it was for pacing reasons. I say that just so I can point out that I was wrong. I now believe that might have been a reason, but the far more likely motivation was that her needful thing is a white bust of Elvis Presley with which she has some form of physical relationship. No, I did not misspeak. Is her connection to the statue itself, to the musician, to the music, to someone or something in her past tangential to the king of rock and roll? We don't know, because she never gets zapped and we never glimpse her memories or inner desires. Prediction time. Is there a better explanation for why Elvis in the book? Of course there is. It's King and the King. I wouldn't be surprised if 60% of the book is about Elvis, and the other 40% Devil Von Sydow's car. In fact, I now want to read the book just to get more information on what the hell is going on with Master Brian's mom. The next 2 major scenes are new material at the sheriff's department that includes such gems as Sheriff Ed Harris being told he has a message from a tax lawyer investigating Buster, another message from the priest, and the license plate check from the exploded car coming back with no matches. Then he calls the lawyer, Bonnie shows up to make out with him again, and he shoos her away. Riveting stuff. Can't imagine why it was cut. Sheriff Ed Harris heads to the church to follow up on the priest's message. So, prediction review. I said, in the background we see a black janitor who only pops up for a brief moment much later. Is there more of this character in the book and TV cut? I up for the TV cut, and knowing King, definitely an I up for the book, although I don't think he can shine or anything. Wrong. Despite this cut being over 3 hours long, the janitor really doesn't get any extra screen time. That said, for the reasons stated last time, I still think he definitely shows up and is fleshed out in the book. As mentioned previously, some scenes in this version are basically the same, but appear at a very different point in the story. As the scene in which the Reverend obtains a piece of erotic art is one of those, coming ridiculously late in this version, almost 2 hours in, I'm just going to cover it now. Prediction review. I said, the priest just covets a nice, perfectly chaste chalice. Does the book dive deeper into the Reverend's hypocrisy? Oh, you better believe that's an I stand by this prediction. Prove me wrong, book. Prove me wrong. Several boring shots of the diner being shut down for the night, in which the only thing of interest is getting to see the pastry case, are tacked onto the head of the long single take of Bonnie moving around, just to establish she's alone, only to have Devil Von Sydow appear from nowhere. Their addition made the long shot so interminable I actually didn't realize it's in the theatrical cut, where it plays just fine. The magic of good editing, folks. Let that be a lesson. Prediction review. I said, also of note, the scene ends with the devil turning to discover Master Brian standing just outside the window, staring at him before fading out. It's weird. Presumably it's an acolyte situation, but it's almost like the devil is the hero and Master Brian a slasher villain. Do they have a longer scene here in the book and TV cut? Could go either way, but I'll wager 2 IUPs. Wrong. Despite all the extra fat on this cut and this scene in particular, there isn't any explanation for this moment before or after it happens. Is there more in the book? Honestly, I'm starting to have my doubts, but it's just so random I have to believe it was only done as an homage to something in the book. So I'll stick with my prediction it's either better explained in the book and/or there's some kind of exchange between them before or after this moment. Bit of an aside, but there's no orange handle on the pot from which Bonnie pours Devil Von Sydow his coffee. You don't offer your customers decaf at night, Bonnie? Which of you is truly the greater monster? Speaking of asides, it's time for Master Brian to smear turkey feces on all those sheets. And I should have mentioned last time, the turkey farmers have the world's creepiest scarecrow. I'm not kidding. Instead of a straw-filled sack for a head, it appears to be some kind of animal skull with the jaws wide open. Truly freaky. And yes, the movie refers to their turkey farm, not turkey ranch. Skipping over the threats to Honey Bunny and her dog, we find her strolling the marina in a new scene in which Devil Von Sydow tracks her down to give her the porcelain tchotchke she failed to take earlier. Does it work that way? Can Devil Von Sydow just put it in your hands and declare no backsies? And now he owns your soul? She didn't even want it, which makes sense given that it triggered memories of her abusive husband. What are the rules here? I have no idea, so I'm just going to face a prediction. Prediction review. I said, we never do learn what would happen if someone even attempted to give their precious back. Does anyone in the book or TV cut try to give their precious back? Nasa. Correct. Honey Bunny comes closest by not even wanting the damn thing and not taking it the first time, but no one ever even tries to give it back. Later, Master Brian's regret will prompt him to attempt suicide, but before that, he will actually state in this version that he'll never give his baseball card back. Since King is probably writing about addiction, I refuse to believe anyone tries to give back their precious in the book. After the infamous achy breaky heart scene from the theatrical cut, we get a new scene in which Sheriff Ed Harris has prepared a spaghetti dinner for Bonnie. It's just here for her to question him about his involvement with Buster, but I'm more fascinated by how it ends. Sheriff Ed Harris assuages her concerns, then they kiss. Because the kiss is filmed over the shoulder, we don't actually see the kiss, so they plastered a truly terrible stock kiss sound effect over it. Delightful. After the theatrical cut scene of the town drunk getting his high school Letterman jacket, we rejoin Master Brian's mom for the second strangest scene in either version. Torn from a page of David Lynch's dream journal, she lies in bed under red and blue lighting wearing Elvis's iconic glasses, lip-syncing Love Me Tender to the monochromatic bust of the king. Frankly, I can't believe the song wasn't recorded backward, then played forward. So what the hell was her flashback moment? Did she sleep with him? If so, is Master Brian's real father Elvis Presley? If not, was his father an Elvis impersonator? Did Elvis just happen to be playing during a particularly romantic prom night? We'll never know, and it's killing me. What we do learn is that she's the one responsible for the rat trap gift bag the deputy will soon receive, although she reveals that information at the end of both versions during the town confession scene. I would skip the scene with Devil Von Sydow tossing Master Brian an apple to remind him he hasn't finished paying off his debt, but courtesy of a new tale on this scene, Devil Von Sydow engages in some cartoon Spider-Man level pointing that really needs to become an animated GIF or meme or something. I'm skipping Master Brian chucking the apples at the turkey farm and some other odds and ends to stop briefly on a 5-second shot from the theatrical cut I really should have discussed last time. After all the needful things have gone out, just under the halfway point in both versions, Devil Von Sydow turns his gaze from the closed until further notice sign he presumably just posted to look almost straight into the lens and tell us, the audience, yes sirree, we're having fun now. Honestly, this doesn't make sense in the theatrical cut either, because people still come by at all hours, and his store is magic, but it works symbolically to designate the second phase of Devil Von Sydow's game plan, a transition from antique proprietor to arms dealer. Man, King, you really did do a lot of cocaine. But in this cut, people continue coming to the store to buy antiques, so here the sign doesn't make sense on any level. Yes, in the theatrical version, Bonnie receives her healing necklace after this point, but that feels like a special case. She came for a medical cure, not to shop. Also, neither version is a comedy, so Devil Von Sydow shouldn't essentially break the fourth wall, and just as Vader should never say Padme, the devil should never say yes sirree. This bit of nonsense is followed by an admittedly well-staged single take of the town drunk approaching Honey Bunny's house, walking upstairs, shuffling along her porch, taking out some keys, opening the door, checking to see if anyone is watching, and then stepping inside. It's 34 seconds of screen time to convey what the theatrical cut did in 17. Technically impressive, but utterly pointless. I cite this example because this cut is lousy with arrival and departure padding. In fact, they like this shot so much they filmed an even longer and more complex version of this shot with Honey Bunny returning home after ticketing Buster's house. Speaking of redundancy, we're treated to even more new material of Bonnie's hands hurting, prompting that visit to Needful Things in which she receives the necklace. This is when Buster barges in, proclaiming they're after him, which leads us to Prediction Review. I said, Buster bursts into Needful Things, claiming they're after him. Then we see that 2 cop cars do, in fact, come roaring past. This one is a no-brainer. Eye up and eye up. The book and TV cut explain this. Flag on the play. For, you see, this prediction was founded on a faulty premise. It was only watching this time I realized the sheriff's vehicles racing past have nothing to do with Buster. They're not what he's referring to. He's freaked out about his house being ticketed. Is he also freaked out about the sheriff's vehicles racing past outside? Or was that just unfortunate timing? Unclear. But what is clear is that in this version, possibly because of a new scene in which Sheriff Ed Harris arrives at the Turkey Farm murder, I finally realized what that cutaway to the vehicles was actually about. Or maybe the repetition and or jumping around in the story to write this finally made things click. I can't be sure, but I'll give the TV version the credit anyway. One arguable improvement in the TV cut is seeing the characters weave in and out of each other's lives more often. However, in this case from the theatrical version, cutting to the sheriff's vehicles passing on their way to the turkey farm double murder muddies the water, since Buster hates speaking with proper nouns. Long story short, this prediction should never have existed for the TV cut or the book and is officially withdrawn from the record. Well, that was awkward for all concerned. Let's get back on track with a different prediction review. Prediction review. I said, despite what I just said about Bonnie's situation being exceptional, she's also exceptional in another way. Apparently, the devil wants to bang her, as evidenced by her electrocution cutaway scene of her being ravaged by the devil. Technically, this is a flash forward, and the only one we get in this cut of the film. Why her, or maybe more accurately, why only her, never explained. Was this explained in the book and TV cut? I'll put my money on Ayup and NASA. Correct. And I'll still wager dollars to donuts it is explained in the book as part of King's multi-book mythos. On that note, let's launch our maiden voyage of the Friday the 13th, the series podcast. No more beating around the bush. Let's get into it. How was that Broadway rave?
Oh, sorry, I did not see that coming.
What exactly is a I still don't feel like I'm saying it correctly. Broadway rave? Was that the term you used?
That's the term they use. I don't know what I would use. I still can't answer that question. This was just a hot mess of an evening, in my opinion. And I was ready to rave. Not that I've ever been to a rave or really know what that means, but I wanted to shroom. Yeah.
Was anyone juggling fire?
No.
One guy twirling a fire baton? No?
No one was that cool.
Maybe next time.
I was expecting them to play Broadway songs, but make them ravey. What?
Yeah, they'd be remixed, right?
Thank you. One would think, nope, this was just one guy saying, hey, these are my favorites. What are yours? This was the term just came to me. This was a Broadway sing-along. That's what this was. It was just people getting up on stage lip syncing, people off stage just swaying back and forth singing along. There was no rave to be had except for the bizarre flashy lighting and people dressed strangely. You made the joke about oh, what do you wear to a Broadway rave? Half a Phantom mask and a Newsies hat, and there were people in those outfits. There was someone there in half a Phantom mask. There was someone there dressed as a Newsies boy. And I was like, oh my.
Nailed it.
I don't know how it didn't occur to me to dress up as a Broadway character. I don't even know what I would dress up as. I mean, I have the Wednesday outfit, I guess, from playing Wednesday, but...
Oh, a newsie, obviously. What I would not give to see you dressed as a newsie.
As a newsie boy. The world's oldest newsie boy.
Little knee-length pants, the suspenders. Yeah, the hat, obviously.
It's it was good people watching. I'll say that. Really good people watching. Mm-hmm. But it will be back in 6 months, and I was I think I'm good. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Nice to see people enjoying musical theater. Nice to see some of the bizarreness. I was laughing through a lot of it and enjoying it, but calling it a rave should be a crime because no raving was happening by anybody.
If you like the horror genre as much as we do, you can preview the horror comic book Requiem for a Psychopath right now for free at the Inner Demon Entertainment website. Imagine a world in which horror film slashers are real. Then imagine a troubled teen bringing one out of retirement to help him take revenge on his bullies. It was written by me and drawn by friend of the show, Stephen Yu. Again, that's Requiem for a Psychopath on the Inner Demon Entertainment website. And, if you dig it, please either review and rate it 5 stars on Amazon, or don't rate and review it at all. Ratings of less than 5 stars send the algorithm into murder mode for some reason. Thanks. I hope you enjoy it. In the new scene just discussed, Sheriff Ed Harris arrives at the turkey farm, which, like establishing he lives on a boat, was a little bit useful. Speaking of him, he once again displays some baffling police work regarding children. Upon seeing Master Brian standing about 20 feet from the bloody bodies, staring blankly at them, Sheriff Ed Harris lightly scolds him for being present, then essentially tells him to scram. Maybe that kid should be questioned or taken to a psychiatrist or both? It's especially weird given that Master Brian will still be present a couple scenes later for Sheriff Ed Harris to toss bloody crime scene evidence to in the form of a murder apple. After Devil Von Sydow takes Buster's gun, new material is added to the crime scene, in which Devil Von Sydow actually shows up at the turkey farm to give said gun to Master Brian in a move that really should have elicited a reaction from Sheriff Ed Harris. Hey, a new shot of Sheriff Ed Harris and the deputy finding Honey Bunny's skinned dog. This isn't exactly Fincher's Zodiac in terms of police procedurals, but it's kinda nice to see the police at least attempting to put it all together. And now a brand spanking new and very surreal, possibly rotoscope dream sequence of Devil Von Sydow coercing Master Brian to commit suicide. We'll put a pin in this. For now, I'll just say the Devil Von Sydow's clasped hand gesture finally makes sense, as he seems to be doing it here to exert direct control over Master Brian's psyche. Also, the filmmakers want us to believe Master Brian sleeps with his priceless baseball card on his pillow beside him. Okay. The scene in the sheriff's department with everyone discussing theories about the turkey farm murder is a little longer, but I'm stopping here to discuss the presence of Master Brian's mom. You may recall we put a pin in her earlier. Prediction review. I said, I assume she was supposed to be a prostitute, but it turns out we'll see her several more times without ever meeting her because this is Master Brian's mother. Is she developed more in the book and TV cut? Oh, that's a fat stack of IOP drizzled with maple syrup. She's definitely an unfortunate actor whose lines were cut from the theatrical release, and I feel certain we learn more about her in the book. Correct. As we already know, she has substantially more screen time in this cut, so I suspect she's a major character in the book as well. In this version, we know why she can be spotted in the background of this scene. She's planting the mousetrap gift bag for the deputy. What's utterly baffling, though, and something that also happened in the theatrical cut, but that I didn't have enough information to unpack at the time, Sheriff Ed Harris actually says he's going to go find Master Brian as Master Brian's mom appears through a doorway not 20 feet off his right shoulder. Then he walks into the hall and clearly sees her leaving the far end of that same short hall, yet says nothing to the mother of the boy you need to go interrogate. You know it's her. She wears a leopard print coat, for the love of God. Why on earth aren't you acknowledging her? While we're here, prediction review. I said, oh, prediction time daily double. Do the book and TV cut to have Sheriff Ed Harris doing actual police work to arrive at the conclusion Master Brian threw the apples. Tough call, but I'll go Ayap. Wrong. This version has a little more police work, but it's mostly just shots of crime scenes being discovered and a couple extra lines of speculation on how the double murder, skinned dog, apple smashing, and turkey feces vandalism aren't simply a beef between Honey Bunny and the turkey farmer. But they currently think everything except the murder was done by one person, and I don't think anyone present believes Master Brian killed and skinned a dog, so I don't see any more reason for Sheriff Ed Harris to suddenly want to speak to him. The book could easily be more procedural, but King isn't really known for that, so I'm going to about face and change my prediction about the book to NASA. I also said, this is also when we learn Master Brian has been having nightmares about the devil. Were these dreams in the book and TV cut? Dreams and vague psychic unease are classic King, so I'm putting a brick on the eye-up pedal, then rolling out of the car. Correct. We can unpin Master Brian's dream sequence from just a little while ago, and I'll double down on eye-up for the book. Only now, in this version, do we get a scene in which Devil Von Sydow wraps up what looks like a statue of Neil Gaiman's Coraline for the diner waitress, while singing My Favorite Things. It's another example of the store being fully open for business, despite the close sign he put up earlier. Side note, it's also a great example of the campy tone both versions dip a toe into, but fail to fully commit. This is followed by a new scene in which we learn Frank is the high school principal, and we see him discover the copy of Treasure Island he refers to near the end of this version. Remember this moment, as it raises a question later. Now, let's explore a quick rift in space and time. Before discovering Master Brian down by the water, we get more of the TV cut padding of Sheriff Ed Harris driving down what I believe is the long driveway of Master Brian's house. However, he passes a lady I don't think we have ever seen or will see again. She's holding a Needful Things bag and steps aside to watch him pass. So, who is she and why is she here? I mean, we do learn from this shot Master Brian lives incredibly close to both the ocean and the lighthouse, but can you just go for a coastal hike on someone's property in Maine? If so, why the bag? Is she taking the incredibly long road home from Needful Things? Down someone's driveway? Maybe I don't know enough about the culture, but this seems weird. Also, in a moment, we'll see that Master Brian's mom is already home and in bed. How? Does she know a shortcut home Sheriff Ed Harris doesn't? Even if she does, she should suspect he's on the way. She knows he's looking for her son. Really, at this moment, she should be pulling into the driveway just ahead of him. King has at least one short story dedicated to the secret logging shortcuts the people of Maine proudly use to distinguish themselves from outsiders, which Sheriff Ed Harris is. So this theory fits like a glove, but I don't think it's accurate. Instead of arriving, she's lying in bed with her precious, guess that runs in the family, listening to Elvis sing Fools Rush In. Side note, this cut must have been more expensive, given they had to shell out for the rights to 2 Elvis songs. Off-screen, Sheriff Ed Harris seems to call out, Russ? Who the hell is Russ? My only guess is that it's the name of Master Brian's absent father, but Sheriff Ed Harris should probably know he's not around. So what is happening here? It doesn't matter because she ignores it, then makes out with the bust of Elvis. What is happening? Oh wait, I just said that. From the moment of his arrival to his discovery of Master Brian down by the water, Sheriff Ed Harris holds an apple. I guess because that's now a symbol of Master Brian? But you know what else is? Master Brian. And we have him. Right here. So why the apple to hint at him? I guess it's also a symbol of the crime, so I'll look the other way. It's just weird he has it, since he doesn't even take a bite out of it. Feels like a classic law enforcement affectation. On the subject of things I didn't point out last time, Rosebud is written on the retaining wall behind Master Brian. Weird. Prediction review. I said, calling the devil a poison man. Try to understand. He's a poison man. I'm guessing the stuff means his brains, and the second speaks for itself. But man, King, why can't your characters just speak like human beings? Are these two phrasings lifted directly from the book? I'm awfully glad you asked me that, Lloyd, because I just happen to have 2 20s and 2 10s right here in my wallet. I was afraid they were going to be there until next April. So here's what. You put it all on Aya. I'm standing by this one on both counts. In the most egregious example of a scene out of place in the TV cut, only now, at the 1 hour, 55 minute mark, does the Reverend show up at Needful Things to welcome Devil Von Sydow to town. That's 2/3 of the way through this cut. What were they thinking? After a little more new material with the priest inquiring about the chalice, we get an entirely new exterior scene staged somewhere of Sheriff Ed Harris offering Master Brian's mom a ride to the hospital, telling his deputy to look into Devil Von Sydow, then learning the town drunk's prints were found on the knife. So many questions here. First, where are they? By a road in the woods near the ocean, but we don't see the suicide spot, the lighthouse, or Master Brian's house. It just kind of feels like this scene is happening outside time and space. Second, what do you mean the doc says Master Brian will be okay? He had a gun to his head, yet he's alive. So, why the doc? Why the ambulance? Why the hospital? Did he get shot elsewhere? Are we talking about powder burns? What actually happened off screen? Third, as he'll do later with Bonnie, Sheriff Ed Harris kicks himself for not being faster. What do you mean? Master Brian is alive. He had a gun to his temple and pulled the trigger, yet he's alive. You performed a miracle of superhuman speed. How could you have been any faster? Fourth, in this version, you suspected Devil Von Sydow the same day you met him. In fact, you wrote yourself a note to check into him. That was an hour and 15 minutes ago. Fifth, how does the town drunk avoid detection if he's currently wanted for murder and, the town drunk? Enough madness. Prediction review. I said, Sheriff Ed Harris visits Bonnie to announce Master Brian's attempted suicide. So apparently he shared that news with her before Master Brian's mother. Do the book and TV cut go into more detail about the attempted suicide? The book? Yeah. The TV cut? Nasa. Wrong. I'm going to quibble a little, since I was picturing a hospital scene, maybe with Master Brian on a ventilator, and an actual discussion with his mother. But he does tell her before Bonnie in this version, so I lost by a hair. Honestly, King's adults are frequently unaware of or indifferent to the suffering of children in his stories, even their own kids, so I'm going to switch my Aya to Nasa regarding the book. After a new scene in which we learn it's the Reverend that plants the money on Sheriff Ed Harris's boat, we get an extension of the bar scene that ends with the town drunk, just hanging out in the most likely place for the police to look for him, being tossed out in the rain. Now this is a fascinating one as it will address a later prediction, but not definitively. Let's put this new exchange between Buster and Master Brian's mom on the back burner for now. But before I move on, I'll just point out I don't know what to make of the fact she calls Buster Buster to his face, and he seems totally cool with it. I have no idea why. After a longer scene of Devil Von Sydow giving the town drunk a shotgun, there's a new scene of Sheriff Ed Harris discovering Bonnie is out of Percodan, after he himself takes one of the medications on her shelf. Despite New England's present problems with opioid addiction, I'm not sure why this is presented as a problem or why she left an empty bottle out for him to find. But it forms the beginning of an argument that will slide into what we saw in the theatrical version and the argument that actually matters, Bonnie being on Team Devil Von Sydow. At more or less this point in the theatrical cut, Sheriff Ed Harris simply explores the abandoned Needful Things, which begs the question, where the hell is Devil Von Sydow if not here? In this version, about 1 minute and 40 seconds are dedicated to watching Sheriff Ed Harris look in the windows, try the door, walk around to the back, and try the back door before finally kicking it in and entering. There's even a bizarre moment where some kids, maybe, in rain gear, jump out from behind a dumpster then run off into the night. I guess they just needed a jump scare to make all this padding more interesting. That said, the result of cutting past all this in the theatrical cut is that Sheriff Ed Harris kicks in a very different door than the one he was just standing outside. This is all intercut with Bonnie having a nightmare. Wait, why is she suddenly asleep? Isn't this minutes later? Anyway, she wakes up and Devil Von Sydow shows up to continue her seduction, culminating with him asking for a kiss. I suppose this still implies more than just the kiss occurs, but it's actually kind of anticlimactic after Bonnie's vision back when she got the necklace of her apparently being ravaged by him. Another odd wrinkle in this new material, Devil Von Sydow tells her, "Blessings like mine won't work for long when people aren't happy." Well, that's a strange addition to the lore. Is he talking about his curios? Many of the people who have them aren't happy. I mean, it perfectly fits the drug metaphor I believe is at the center of the book, and yes, several characters in the movie eventually become disillusioned, but frankly, almost none of them seem any happier or better off for acquiring their needful thing, so this line really muddies the water. Prediction review. I said, the devil shows up to help her put it back on, and despite the crippling pain, she first asks him what's inside the pendant. We won't get an answer. Do we learn what's inside the pendant in the book or TV cut? The book? I'll see a aya and raise you an aya. Further wagering it's some dark power that ties into the whole king mythos. As for the TV cut, who really needs clear storytelling, so nasa. Correct. As for the book, I'm sticking with my aya, although I'm starting to think we'll just learn even more mythology without being told specifically what's inside. Back to Sheriff Ed Harris, two strange discoveries in the new footage of him exploring the upstairs. First, he finds a tapestry with the slogan, Et vivum detulit oprum terribilem. My apologies to all our Latin-speaking listeners. This phrase isn't explained, nor does the tapestry have any imagery that would help decipher it. A Google online translation claims it means, and he brought alive a terrible boar. An online discussion thread claims it's a reference to the 12 labors of Hercules, and goes on to speculate it's a reference to what a big task Sheriff Ed Harris has ahead of him, but who honestly knows? Fun fact, it was only in researching this phrase that I stumbled across moviecensorship.com, because they call it out specifically in their limited text for some reason. Guess it fascinated them as much as it did me. Prediction time. Does the book contain the Latin quote and maybe information about it? Well, this one is a little meta, but since I didn't find any references to the book while researching the movie, I'll go with NASA. The other peculiarity can be found in a room we saw earlier that appeared perfectly normal except it has slanted walls that reveal the shape of the roof. That said, we now discover there are several gnarly metal hooks sticking out of the wall-ceiling hybrid that go unexplained. Sheriff Ed Harris even reaches up to inspect one. Prediction time. Are these hooks explained in the book, and were they used for something Barker-esque? I'll wager, yep. Things play out more or less the same for a bit, so let's jump ahead to Buster smashing the deputy's car outside the sheriff's station. Prediction review. I said, outside the station, Buster crashes into the deputy's car. Why he's the one escalating makes no sense, as it was the deputy who was last wronged via a gift bag that turned out to contain a mousetrap. Then again, I don't think the deputy ever accepted a curio from the devil, so he's not under the devil's control. Is there a scene in the book or TV cut that sets up why Buster is coming after the deputy right now? I'll send a heavily armored Ayat division to both the eastern and western fronts. Correct. Time to move that bar conversation between Master Brian's mom and Buster back to the front burner. According to moviecensorship.com, she tells him his wife is cheating on him with the deputy, and everyone knows. I've listened to their exchange a half-dozen times, and all I can understand is that one character told another character who told everyone something. But I cannot for the life of me understand her sultry, whispered statement of what exactly it is everyone knows. I'll just assume moviecensorship.com knows better than I do. So, although I can't confirm it myself, I was right about the TV cut and will maintain my ayah regarding the book, which hopefully will clarify this issue once and for all. Speaking of Buster's wife, I now find myself wondering, in the scene in which Buster returns home and kills her, he quips, "I thought you died on the John." Is this another Elvis reference? I would make it a prediction, if I ever thought I could ask King myself to get the answer. Prediction review. I said, we now get our longest scene with Dan's wife, and it's a scene that should have been cut. I'd skip it myself, but Buster asks if his wife had an affair with the deputy, so were there more lines in the book and TV cut that implied he suspected this? And did she? I'll go with regarding his suspicion, but nasa that she actually did. Correct. Mostly. As we just talked about, he was told by Master Brian's mom in this version. Did his wife actually cheat? Unlikely, since we can probably assume Master Brian's mom was lying, but it's not definitive. I think in the book we'll be told she made it up. Things play out normally for a bit, plus a little extra fat. But in the scene with Buster burying the bomb at the church, Devil Von Sydow specifically mentions hating church steeples. What does he expect Buster to do about it that isn't already covered by blowing up the church? I haven't the foggiest, but let's put a pin in it. Prediction time. I said, "What's the harm? This is a band-aid moment that attempts to justify why the devil needs people to do his dirty work, in which he claims he can't work miracles and cause the earth to split open and swallow humanity. Fair. But he can bury a bomb, can't he? Or fire a gun? Or stab someone? Really, this proposed answer just creates more questions. Does the book skip this metaphysical, theological rationalization to instead offer a complicated mythology, likely tying into the Greater King mythos? If you have to ask the question, you already know the IUP. I'm sticking with this IUP. After a longer murder investigation inside the bar, we move outside. Then something truly unexpected and interesting happens. In a very ominously lit, tightly framed, rain-drenched scene, with a cinematically shallow depth of field for once, Sheriff Ed Harris, in front of a sea of onlookers, walks over to Devil Von Sydow and beats the crap out of him. They speak before and during the pummeling, and we learn that Bonnie is Sheriff Ed Harris's Needful Thing, which isn't very progressive, but an interesting twist. Also of note, Devil Von Sydow claims God basically looks the other way regarding his activities, just to make himself look better by comparison. That's not only incredibly dark, incredibly blasphemous really, but remember the steeple we pinned earlier? Let's pin this right alongside it. The problem with this otherwise interesting, beautiful, and dramatic scene is that Sheriff Ed Harris never has a Luke Skywalker moment of self-revelation. He just beats Devil Von Sydow until the deputy pulls him off. To be fair, it isn't their last confrontation, but I think both versions would have benefited from Sheriff Ed Harris pointing his gun at Devil Von Sydow during the final confrontation before having a change of heart and firing into the air as he presently does. Also very odd, Sheriff Ed Harris storms off passing Bonnie's place, and she watches him from a bay window, but then, after a fade out to commercial break, in another new scene, he's sitting in the diner and she walks in. Wait, through the doorway behind her is a living room and stairs leading up to a second level? Hang on, does she live above the diner? I mean, I guess that's not crazy, but shouldn't that doorway lead to the diner's kitchen? We're almost 2 hours and 45 minutes in, and I suddenly don't understand the geography of a location we've seen half a dozen times in both versions. Anyway, this new scene accomplishes nothing except to motivate him to save the town, which one assumes he was already trying to do. To be fair, nice continuity giving him bloody knuckles. As in the theatrical version, the bomb fails to completely destroy the church, and the steeple is struck by lightning, explodes, then falls near the priest. So let's do some unpinning. We've already established Devil Von Sydow specifically hates steeples, and that he claims God gives him a get-out-of-jail-free card in perpetuity, and is kind of on his side. Now, a bolt of lightning, completely unrelated to the bomb, but coming moments after it, despite no thunder, despite no rain, and, I think impossibly, despite no clouds in the sky, hits the steeple and, even though the steeple should be grounded, blows it up. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think Devil Von Sydow was being modest. According to this movie, God and the devil are besties. Prediction review. I said, so why has the whole town taken on an every person for themselves mentality? Does the book or TV cut explain why everyone has gone insane? I'll guess the book explains this with a vaguely defined psychic horror that's something like the devil's background radiation. Call it passive anarchy, if you will. As for the TV cut, no sir. Correct. There's no specific reason for why, suddenly, the monsters are due on Maple Street, and I'll stand by my eye-up regarding the book. In a fun new reveal, the diner waitress tells Sheriff Ed Harris the Baptist church was also bombed. I realized it would have required a temporal wormhole to have Sheriff Ed Harris present for both simultaneously, but I'm honestly stunned they could resist having him survive a fifth explosion. Now, in a difference I caught, but moviecensorship.com missed, Frank beats a man for stealing his first edition copy of Huckleberry Finn. However, in the theatrical cut, which I can now tell was dubbed over, he claims the man stole his copy of Treasure Island, which is his Needful Thing in both versions. Originally, the TV cut felt like a mistake, but then I realized if he values books so much, he probably has other rare volumes at home. This feels like the correct interpretation because no one steals or messes with anyone else's Needful Thing. Even so, why they dubbed it, poorly, for the theatrical cut, I can't imagine, since it absolutely does not matter. While we're here with Frank, prediction review. I said, a character named Frank we've barely seen beats a man for taking his copy of Treasure Island. Do we learn Frank's story in the book and TV cut? Please. Correct. We don't learn a lot, but we see him get his needful thing and learn his profession. And that's basically what I meant, so I'm counting it. As the character is into literature and a teacher, a profession that has appeared in other King stories, I suspect we get even more with him in the book. Prediction time. Does any character steal or mess with anyone else's needful thing in the book? NASA. Just to break up all these predictions and prediction reviews, I'll point out in both versions, one of two guys fighting in the street literally yells, "That's my needful thing," in an absolute airball of a title drop. Prediction review. I said, Sheriff Ed Harris intervenes, but once again sends a concussed man to drive himself home, so not real knowledgeable about head trauma. A motorcycle almost runs him down, and the choice of a motorcycle for that mission seems odd and specific. So, just for fun, is there more about the motorcyclist in the book and TV cut? The book? Yep. The TV cut? NASA. Correct. Not much to say here, except I really want to believe it's addressed in the book, for some reason. It probably won't be, so I guess this is a hope-based prediction. Prediction review. I said, the Reverend is about to hack the priest in two with, honestly, I don't know. A halberd, maybe? It's like a cross between a cricket bat and a Final Fantasy Buster sword. I'm guessing it has something to do with commercial fishing. Is it here because King tried to make it a thing in the book, like the roque mallet in The Shining? Just call it croquet. Croquet is obscure enough. No one knows what roque is. Anyway, and you knew this was coming, Again, I stand by this one, and as with Master Brian's mom, I'm tempted to read Needful Things just to answer this burning question. Prediction review. I said, a lot of characters we never met get name-dropped here. So, are these all characters we... you know the drill by now? I up the book, I up for some of them in the TV cut. Correct. Yes, this one was a little loosey-goosey, but although we don't learn any more about Eddie, the black janitor at the church, or Karen, I'm pretty sure, heretofore unseen character we will never see again, we did learn more about the diner waitress, Frank, and Master Brian's mom, so I'm counting this, especially since I was exactly right in that we learned more about some, but not all of them. As for the book, I still think we're going to learn about all of them. Prediction review. I said, in fact, we finally learned Master Brian's mom is named Cora, and she finally gets a line, and that Master Brian is in the hospital, presumably from the suicide attempt. Was the hospital scene in the book and movie? That's a double dose of Wrong. Technically, it wasn't a hospital scene. I'm tempted to still count it, but we didn't even get a scene so much as a couple lines addressing it. So I wouldn't call this a strike so much as a foul ball. Again, to break up all these predictions, I'll point out that in both versions, during a quiet moment in the middle of Sheriff Ed Harris's dramatic monologue, someone coughs loudly off screen, and they just left it in. Maybe the tail end of it overlapped with the beginning of Sheriff Ed Harris's next sentence, and they couldn't get him for an ADR session. All I know is I can picture some poor extra or crew member suppressing that cough for as long as they could, realizing it was going to happen, then just going for it during a break in the dialogue, hoping everyone would be cool because it could be removed later. In fact, I wonder if the cougher argued that, since it made it into the final cut, they should now be SAG eligible and maybe even get a pay bump. In another fun little moment, Sheriff Ed Harris looks over at Karen before she begins confessing to stealing Frank's Huckleberry Finn with a bit of dubbed dialogue as bad as Frank's a few minutes ago. Prediction time. Is Karen in the book? In a word, Also, prediction time. Frank the principal, Eddie the janitor, and Karen confess to things we never even saw. Do we see their transgressions in the book? I'm going with a triple shot of Prediction review. I said, "Dang it, this was almost over, and Max von Sydow had done everything he could to elevate the material. But now you made him say, 'Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me.' And even he finally collapsed under the load." Is that an exact line from the book? Well, it's not technically a kingism, just an old-timey saying, but one I'm convinced warrants a firm, confident aye. Oh, I stand by this. Prediction review. I said, "The devil walks out of the burning rubble completely unscathed, gives Sheriff Ed Harris his best, and proceeds to inform him he'll have a wonderful family and that he will meet his grandson in Jakarta in 2053. Okay. Is this a reference to the King mythos? I guess. Maybe something covered in the book's epilogue, or maybe just something you have to understand from reading other King books? I'm shocked this line is here, but also don't care anymore. Also, are we to assume from this Bonnie's first child will actually be the devil's? I see a strong argument, but it's not definitive. I'm sticking with the eye up, and I'll even go all in on the book giving us a definitive answer on the paternity test. The TV cut goes for the mega happy ending, in which Bonnie walks over to Sheriff Ed Harris, asks if she can have her ring back, despite the fact her hands should probably be killing her without the necklace, and they kiss, despite having just learned the devil definitely exists. But hey, human beings are amazingly adaptable, and I guess you gotta move on eventually. Come to think of it, just off camera in this deleted kissing scene, I assume the priest and reverend are holding hands, twirling in a circle, celebrating the proof of their respective faiths. The credits are probably the same, except for 2 music additions for the Elvis songs. Well, we now have 2 Needful Things, so we can finally say, let's not go to that Needful Things, let's go to the good one. See you at the book club, kids. Thanks for listening, everyone. We know you have a lot of choices when choosing a Friday the 13th series podcast, and we sincerely thank you for choosing ours. Special thanks to Joshua Romeo for original music, and to Stephen Yu for original art. And be sure to check out the Joe on Joe podcast, the only podcast where Joe Slepsky discusses G.I. Joe. If you want to support our show, you can leave a review and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. If you want an occasional update on our projects, you can sign up for our newsletter at the Inner Demon Entertainment website. And if you want to know exactly how behind schedule our latest episode will be, you can find social media links on our website. And always remember what Carl said to Frylock. It don't matter. None of this matters. Good night, everybody.